Usually on this podcast, people are like getting a whole business plan. You're getting a free yourself plan. Today is a coaching episode with none other than the amazing award-winning podcast host, Alfred.
It was just like an idea that popped in my head. Start a podcast, name it Balanced Black Girl.
Yes.
So launched a week later.
She is celebrating 1 year as an entrepreneur. We're going to do some coaching and see if we can make her a little more money. Tell me the makeup of your 6 figures right now.
I would say my 2 main streams right now are social media revenue and podcast revenue.
Can I tell you something that I feel like I'm noticing? Combination of the podcast and social media, I suspect that it's taking a lot of your energy.
1,000. Yes. Okay. I'm like fighting for my life.
So you want a business that makes money when you're not there. Let's review your game plan.
Okay.
That's going to help you make 7 figures. What do you feel like the lowest fee should be that you accept?
Maybe like 10K.
I like it. So if it ain't 10K, please go away.
Welcome to the Hello 7 podcast. That's 7 as in 7 figures. I'm your host, Rachel Rogers.
Welcome to the Hello 7 podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Rachel. I'm so excited.
So you just celebrated 1 year of entrepreneurship. How was it?
1 year full time. I made it. My main measure of success that first year was like, can I pay my rent 12 months in a row?
Yes.
I went 12 for 12.
Yay! High five.
I'm excited about that.
You made it. Listen, if the rent is paid, we can keep going.
Exactly.
That is exactly what my measure was my first year of entrepreneurship. So I get that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I love it. Oh, so congratulations. So we're going to talk today about your business and where you want to go from here. So like after the first year, you collect some information, right? So what things is there 1 or 2 things that's really clear to you after year 1 of entrepreneurship?
I think the thing that's probably the clearest to me is I do like business. I like having a business. I like running a business. I think I am somebody who does well with the autonomy of doing my own thing. Like not having a boss or having someone, over my shoulder telling me what to do. I don't need that. I learned I'm fine. I can hold myself accountable.
Yes.
I think I want to explore the different types of business I'm pursuing because my business has been very focused on me being an influencer and creator.
Yes.
And while I like entrepreneurship and want to continue that, I don't think I necessarily want to be like pigeonholed into the box of influencer for the rest of my career.
Yes.
So I'm figuring out, okay, how do I set the foundation for something else?
Yes, exactly. I think, I've had people call me an influencer and I'm like, no, I'm a businesswoman, Yeah. An influencer, if anything, it's a secondary thing. It's a way that I continue to build my audience and let more people know about what we do. But it's never been the primary for me. It's always been about like building something that I own, that's sustainable, that I can do with cool people and make amazing things, Mm-hmm. And I feel like, I don't know, there's more ownership there. I feel like being an influencer is sometimes you're beholden to what's going on in corporate America and how much they want to invest or not invest, Yep. So yeah. I feel you on that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So for those who don't know you, take us back. Like, how did you wind up with this amazing podcast? Like, tell us the story of starting the podcast and getting the deal with Dear Media. Take us back.
Yeah. So it's probably best to start with my first little segue into content as a blogger.
Yes.
So early in my career, I was working in corporate, absolutely hated it, but I realized that I really liked wellness. I liked working out. I liked trying healthy recipes. I was very into that.
Yeah.
So I used to read a lot of blogs because like my friends, my family, no one around me was interested in wellness stuff. So I would read these wellness blogs because that was where I could get more information and feel like I was part of a community where people were interested in what I was interested in.
Yes.
And I started noticing around like the 2013, 2014 mark, a lot of my favorite wellness bloggers were quitting their jobs to run their blogs full time. And I was like, well, I like wellness. I have a background in writing. I hate my job. Maybe I can be a blogger and do that too. Yeah. I was like, the math is mathing. And so I started a blog and that was how I started creating content. The blog itself was not necessarily lucrative. I didn't, really make any money off of the blog at all, but I did start creating social media content to supplement the blog. And after a few years of that, that was when I started making a little bit of money here and there, getting free product, which at the time was really exciting.
Yes. Until you're like, free product. It doesn't pay rent.
It does not pay rent. Exactly.
Funny how that works.
Right. After about 4 years of that, I was like, okay, this is not working. I'm still not really making money, a little bit here and there, but nothing consistent. I'm just going to take a break from this until I get an idea to do something else. So
okay. I just want to pause you for a second. So this whole time you're working full-time job and you're doing your blog. This is a side hustle for you. And 4 years in, you're like, okay, I still don't have steady income from it.
Yes.
I just want to like point that out to people because I think people want everything to be instant. You know, like I start today and I'm rich tomorrow. And that's not how any of this works. Unfortunately, it requires effort over time. Now, does it always have to be 4 years, 5 years, 10 years? No, it depends on the situation, right? There are ways to get to cash faster. But, you know, I think it's important for people to see because sometimes they're like, oh, I love where you're at right now. Like I'm jealous of where you're at. But it's like, okay, but are you jealous of the 4 years that I put in?
Right.
And the effort that I put in when no one was paying me anything, you know, or the times where I showed up to whatever thing and 2 people were there or no one was commenting or no one read or the traffic was 0, right? Like be jealous of that too, because that's all part of it.
Exactly.
You know, that's how we get here. Okay. I just need to point that out for the people.
Yeah. And it was necessary. And during that time, I was doing little things to monetize in other ways. I was previously a personal trainer and fitness instructor. And so because I did start building a little bit of an audience, I would put together like workout plans, workout challenges that people would pay to do. Okay. So I was doing little things like that. And so the money that I was making at that time was more so that. And then I would have the occasional brand deal at that time.
Okay, cool.
But I did learn that I really liked participating in wellness more than I liked teaching it. So I actually learned I didn't really like being a trainer. I didn't really like teaching workout classes. I didn't like running these programs that I just didn't really enjoy it. And so that was when I decided to take a pause from kind of that whole platform that I had created.
Yeah. First of all, I love that you made that choice. I think it's so important. And this is something that I harp on constantly. Do what you love, do what you're drawn to, do what your like talents naturally fit into instead of doing things that drain you, that are exhausting because the money is never there, right? You don't do it long enough or like you're not going to become world-class at something that you hate and dread, you know? You're going to become world-class at something that this lights me up. I'm excited. I would do this every day. You know, that's the thing that you're going to become the best in the world at. And that's going to pay you the most.
Exactly.
So I love that. Okay. So you were like, listen, this is not bringing me joy. I'm cutting it off.
Exactly. So during my little hiatus, I was still working full time. And during this time off from content was when I got the idea to start my podcast. Okay. And I started it immediately.
Okay. First of all, so many gems in this story because the other thing is you took a break and then you got a genius idea.
Yeah.
Those things are connected. That's how it works, right? Like sitting at your laptop all day, every day is not when the genius idea comes. It comes when you're walking around. It comes for me when I'm taking a very long hot shower. You know, it comes when I travel, go to museums, like doing things to stoke that creativity and inspiration. Like that's when you get your best ideas.
Exactly.
I love it. Okay. Yeah. So you got the idea for the podcast.
I got the idea. It was just like an idea that popped in my head. Start a podcast, name it Balanced Black Girl. I immediately went on Amazon, ordered a microphone, spent the next week like Googling everything that I could about podcasting. And then the show launched a week later.
I love it.
Which was just like a little crazy on my part.
No, this is good.
I was like, if I don't do this right now, someone else is going to, and I'm going to be devastated to see someone else do this. Yeah. And have been doing the podcast ever since.
I love it. Awesome. So like idea to execution 7 days. Listen, there's so much to learn here, my friends. Okay. Because the thing is, the way you learn how to do something is to actually do it. Yeah. And make the mistakes and get better and tweak and repeat, right? Yep. Like you don't get better by thinking about it for the next 5 years. You know, you have to get out there and get the experience. So I love that you did that. So you're just kind of doing it on your own. And what was that like? What was the audience growth like? And did it make you any money?
The audience growth was really good. I noticed almost right away that I had a much more captive audience with the podcast than I'd ever had with my blog before. And so I was like, okay, I think we've got something here. And then after a few months, I started getting people pitching, like wanting to be on the show. And I was like, people know what this is and they want to be a part of it. Yes. So I started the show in October 2018.
Okay.
The first few months, I started building up kind of a steady audience. By that early spring, I was like, maybe I can get some sponsors for this. And that was when I started pitching sponsors. Okay. And there were a couple of different ways I did it. So when I first started the podcast, there was a book club component. where I had these like monthly book clubs in Seattle we would all read the same book and then we would meet up and we would talk about it. So I found a sponsor that was willing to sponsor our book club, host a space for it, and then, run a few ads on the podcast. That was like a local business.
Okay.
And then I ended up pitching another brand saying, hey, I really like your product. It was for a Black woman specific product. And I was like, this is my audience of Black women. Here's how many listens we have. And then I was able to start getting some sponsors that way. It wasn't consistent to the point where it was like every episode had sponsors, but it was like I was starting to weave them in here and there. I also had some affiliate relationships from brands that I had either worked with before, and I started creating little ads just with my affiliate codes to get the audience used to it for the first year.
It's such a good strategy if you have a podcast. Like you don't have to wait necessarily for an official sponsor. If you have an affiliate relationship, you just create an episode about the product and then you give them your code.
Exactly. Like I would create these little ad
particularly
reads.
if they pay you cash instead of paying you in product, Yes. But I love that.
Yeah. And so for the next probably like 2 years after that, they would pick up more and more. I would get kind of more sponsors for the podcast. I would continue getting social media brand deals because I was still doing social media this whole time for about 2 years, to the point where it became like part-time income.
Yes.
And then in 2021, that was when things really started picking up. So that was when I started experiencing like a lot more audience growth. I had signed with an agency that wasn't a podcast network, but it was a hosting platform where they also sold ads into the podcast. And so that first time having like dedicated support outside of just me to sell ads into it was when I started monetizing consistently.
Oh, okay. So you got some help and you immediately started making money. Excellent.
Yes.
That's good to know. This is the advice that I give constantly. I don't think people realize that like you either got to share your profits or invest in some support. Like that's part of the risk you have to take, like making that initial investment so that you can start to see the returns, from it. So, getting some help so that you can, like you were selling ads on your own, but making it steady.
Yeah.
Right. You couldn't do it like you were working a full-time job, doing the podcast, doing these other things here and there, like your book club and other things. Like there's only so much time in a day.
Exactly. Yeah. And the model that I had at that time was I had my full-time job to cover my life. I had social media where I had a little bit more kind of authority or a little bit more of a following that I was monetizing. And then before the podcast really started making money, everything I earned from social media is what kept the podcast running. So that was when I paid for like an assistant to help me book guests, and I paid for editing because I did not want to do that on my own. I did the first like year, and then I started hiring out editors after that. And so that was the model that I really ran on for a long time.
Yeah, I love it. Like finding one way to generate capital that keeps the other projects going, which is, you were sort of like, okay, I'm going to use this short-term way to make money to fund this really long-term asset that I'm building. Brilliant. Okay. So these are all really good moves that you've made along the way.
It was.
Truly.
It was rough at the time. It all felt very rough.
I believe it.
2020, 2021, I was like really locked in. But it ended up working out.
Yes, that hard work paid off. So, okay, so you get the agency, you've got steady income coming from the podcast. Then what happens?
Yeah.
Listen up. If you're tired of setting the same income goals year after year and still coming up short, it's time to change the game. You know you're meant for more, but right now your business isn't moving like it should. You've got the talent, the skills, the ambition, but your bank account isn't reflecting that. That's where the Make Money Moves Challenge comes in. For 5 days, I'm giving you the exact strategies, mindset shifts, and money-making moves that have helped me and thousands of other entrepreneurs break out of the feast or famine cycle and start stacking real wealth. No more scrambling to hit your revenue goals, and no more waiting for the perfect time to go all in. You're getting daily action steps that will have you making more money immediately. This isn't a fluffy feel-good challenge. This is about building a business that actually pays you what you deserve. So are you in? If so, join me for our next challenge. Go to hello7.co/challenge to sign up now.
So about 2021, that was when I started feeling really overwhelmed managing both, because the podcast was getting bigger. I was also getting more responsibility at work. I was still getting promoted. I was managing a team. I was getting more responsibility. And that's when I was thinking like, okay, at some point, sooner rather than later, I am going to need to go full time.
Yeah.
And I was experiencing a lot of resistance within myself, of feeling a lot of fear, of just being too scared of feeling like, okay, the second I quit my job, everything is going to go away. I'm not ready. I can't do it.
Yeah.
So I started thinking, okay, what are the things that I'm afraid of, and how can I solve for these things? And so a lot of that was looking at my personal finances.
Yes.
And so that year I focused really heavily on my personal finances of, I had this much debt. I wanted to get that paid off. I wanted to have my business actually structured properly so that I could pay myself, because I still had never, even though the business was making money, I'd still never paid myself at that point. And I was like, okay, I need to like get that set up properly so that I can actually start paying myself, so I can actually start saving, and so that it's starting to feel like a real business. And so 2021, I was like in the house all year, spending no money, reading all of the books. I remember reading We Should All Be Millionaires when it first came out. Like that was a big part of that season, paying off my student loans really aggressively, really saving, structuring the money in my business so that I could start paying myself in addition to the people who were helping me. And so by the time 2022 came around, I had a little bit more wiggle room. I was able to start paying myself a little bit more. The podcast was still continuing to grow. I was still bringing in ad dollars, and it was starting to feel a little bit better, especially once I had my student loans paid off. I felt like I had a lot more breathing room.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. And then is this like when you, did you sell the podcast, or you got like a sponsorship deal?
Yeah. So in early 2023, that was when I was contacted by my network saying, hey, we see the show. We love it. We're really interested in having you join us. Like, is this something you would be interested in? And I was like, well, that's cool. Like, I'd love to learn more. But it actually took me a while to really decide if I wanted to do it or not.
Yes. And that sounds wise, right? Like, this is an asset you've built and created. And it's like bringing in a partner has benefits, but it also has, downsides also. So I think it's important to evaluate.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get caught up in like the name or the sort of the ego part of being associated with something bigger or having this opportunity, like, oh, I can't wait to announce this. And that's all beautiful and exciting. And, right, like, is there a downside, right? So I think that's smart to evaluate it and recognize that, like, not every opportunity is the right opportunity. So
I took a while to really think about it. And then when I decided, okay, maybe this is something I want to explore, I ended up hiring an attorney to help me review the contract and negotiate it to be a version that I felt comfortable with. And that whole process took months. It took a while.
I believe it.
Like, they had reached out to me, I think it was like January 2023. I took quite a bit of time to think about it. And then we entered the negotiation process, and it wasn't all finalized until I think August of 2023.
Yeah.
And then that was when I ended up joining a network. And that is what made the podcast income really stable, because there was just a lot more process behind it.
Yeah.
I had a lot more production support, so I wasn't paying out of pocket as much for production support anymore. And then that was when I was like, okay, I think I can finally go full time now.
Yes, because now you've got like steady recurring revenue that you can rely on.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So you joined the podcast network August 2023, and then when did you quit your job?
I quit my job in December 2023.
Awesome. Amazing. Okay. So now, that's the backstory. It took a long time to get here. I mean, that's like a 10-year journey.
It was
you just
10
shared.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you're 1 year into like full-time entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
What do you want? Like, how much money do you actually want to make? And what do you want that you don't currently have?
Yeah. I want to feel like I have a real business that I can truly scale and grow with. I feel like right now I'm very much an influencer. I am the product, and everything is dependent on me being on camera, me being on social media, me as a product kind of being consumed.
Yes.
And it's exhausting.
Yes.
And it's, I'm super grateful to be able to like pay New York City rent, which is no joke. It's also like not as lucrative as people think.
Yes. Well, when people see you like on a podcast network, it's almost like seeing someone on TV. Like, I don't know how old I was when I discovered that like all actors weren't like super wealthy, Yeah. And then you're like, I have friends who are actors, and they're like, I'm like coaching them on how to make more money, So just because someone's on TV or just because someone is seen like in front of a large audience fame does not equal fortune.
No.
They don't necessarily, they can be, but not always,
Right.
you know? And also, you know, you can make some good money. You can, like, I'm sure there's plenty of people listening who would like kill to have a podcast that allows them to live in New York City, you know, comfortably. And at the same time, right, we know that there's another way, because what you don't want is to have a business where you only make money when you are there. And if you're not performing or being there or being in front of a camera, like you say, or doing something, then the business does not have a way to make money when you aren't present.
Exactly.
You know? So like then it's like that has a shelf life. Just as, it's almost like I think of like podcast hosts, you know, actors, right? Like it's almost like being an athlete, right? Like that career can only last for so long. And that's why pro athletes do what they do for what? 5 years, sometimes maybe they make it to 10, right? And then they retire, because like that is a lot of wear and tear on the body, you know? Or similar to my best friend, Robert, where, you know, he was on Broadway for 10 years. And after 10 years, he was like, okay, I'm done with that, you know? Because it was just 9 shows a week. It's just intense. Yes. So like, you know, setting up some other ways for business to be going and money to be made when you are not present, that's delightful.
Exactly. That is what I would love.
Look at the smile on your face.
Yes, that is what I would love.
Okay, so you want a business that makes money when you're not there.
Yes.
Okay, what else? What else is on your wish list?
I would love to invest. I would love to get more into angel investing in other people's businesses.
Yes.
I didn't go into detail about the different jobs that I had during that whole journey, because I've had a lot of different jobs, but one of the jobs I had was in the startup space.
Yes.
And I was working at a very early stage startup that was fundraising, you know, seed, Series A, Series B while I worked there. And that process really fascinated me. It fascinated me to see like who was investing in the company.
Yes.
And then also through that job, I had a network of a lot of other female entrepreneurs who were doing things like fundraising and running these types of businesses. And I was like, well, I want to invest in these types of businesses.
Yes.
I don't have the capital yet to do so, but it's really a goal of mine to get to that point.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so great. So that brings us to like, what's your number? Like, well, how much do you want to be making?
I mean, I would love to start by getting to 7 figures.
Yes.
I'm at 6 now, and I would love to get to 7 is like my next goal.
Okay, great. Well, I just happen to be really good at getting people to 7 figures.
Amazing.
So let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So revenue of $1 million as like your next. I love that, at least. Yes. Because honestly, this is what I say all the time. $1 million is like, that's the floor.
Yeah.
That's the starting point. That's where it gets really interesting, because now you can build a team and, you know, there's like, you're able to make investments. So there's different directions you can go in and you can make decisions that you can't make when it's just like, okay, I'm making enough to like keep this business going and maybe have an assistant and that's it.
Yep.
Right. Versus like, if you can make investments in doing bigger things, you know, and taking it in another direction. So I really love, I want people to like really have it ingrained in their minds that $1 million is just like, that's base level. Let's just get there. And then it gets really fun and interesting, you know? And I totally agree with you on being an investor. I became an investor, I feel like around maybe it was 2021, 2022, somewhere in that range. A friend of mine was building a business and she asked me to invest. And I was like, I could do that. Let's do it. And I didn't see myself as an investor. So it was like almost like it was like an identity shift that had to happen. And then I just started like looking out for other deals. And then another friend was taking on investors for his software company. And I was like, okay, I'm in. So I wrote a bigger check. And then there was another opportunity. So I wrote a bigger check, you know? And now I'm on my 4th one that I'm about to make, but it's so fun. It is, first of all, especially when you've been a CEO of a business with a team, and then you just get to write a check and then you just see the value going up. Yes. It's so fun.
Yes.
You're like, oh my God, I made all this money and I didn't have to do anything except like maybe answer some questions and go to a couple meetings every now and then.
Literally my dream. Like, I'm not a worker bee type of girl. I'm just not. I learned that about myself so early.
First of all, can we make this the title of the episode? I'm not a worker bee type of girl.
I'm not.
I fucking love it.
I am not. There's some people who are like, I love working. I don't care what it is. I'm never going to love it. There are some things that it's fine. It's fun. It has its moments. I'm never going to love it. It's just like...
I'm not a worker bee kind of girl. So good. So like basically new business, not worker bee mode.
Yes.
Okay. And that's understandable, right? Because you've done that for a long time. So now you're ready to go to whatever that next phase is.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about tell me the makeup of your 6 figures right now. What products, what are the different streams of revenue right now?
I would say my 2 main streams right now are social media revenue and podcast revenue. So of what I'm making, I would say probably about 60% of that, maybe like 55%. Let's say 55% is revenue from the podcast and podcast ads.
Okay.
Yeah, 55%. Let me get my math right. And then I would say like 40% is social media brand deals, sponsorships.
Okay.
And then that 5% I would say is kind of miscellaneous. That's like paid speaking gigs. That is, I have a few like digital products and just the occasional affiliate revenue.
Okay. So speaking gigs, digital products, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. And do you find that the podcast revenue that's pretty consistent? It sounds like.
Yeah.
Is the social media revenue also consistent?
Not as consistent. No.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It comes and goes. And I know I've seen so many people talking about brand deals right now and how challenging it is.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that I've never made that, that's never been a big part of my business, but it's just been I sort of see it as investing money, right? So I kind of think of it as, I'm using money, book royalties, money from brand deals, the one-off brand deal that I do, speaking gigs, all that is money I put in my brokerage account and then I can make investments.
Yep.
So that's kind of how I think of it. And then the business is the main bread and butter, So let's get you to a similar place where you can just have your gravy money,
Yeah. I would love content to kind of be the side hustle again, but instead of a corporate job, it's me doing other things.
So moving content to the side hustle. So what ideas have you had for, replacing some of this income or getting to that 7 figures? What ideas are you touring with at the moment?
Yeah. Well, if I'm thinking purely just make more money, but this doesn't involve me taking me out of things as a caveat, I definitely think I can make more money speaking.
Okay.
Speaking, hosting, facilitating. I'm very seasoned at it, especially from podcasting.
Yes.
And it's something that I do every once in a while. Usually the gigs are pretty low paying if I get paid at all. And I do think that there's a lot more room for me to make more money doing that.
Yes. But see, I'm going to cross that out. Okay. And the reason why is because we specifically said I'm the product.
I know.
So let's come up with something that doesn't make you the product.
Okay.
So for example, if you want to speak, then I'd rather you be speaking in front of a camera where you're filming a course that you can sell and scale. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or something like that. Basically Beyonce, she's going to record Cowboy Carter and then she's going to give us this album and then she's going to go sit her happy ass down and do what the hell she wants to do, for months, years, whatever. And then she's going to give us this tour. Mm-hmm. We're going to get our tour and then she's going to go disappear again, and that's what you want because that IP is just making her money while she's chilling. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we want for you. What is that intellectual property that we can create for you that can be sold and make money? So there's mainly 2 ways that I think about scaling. It's either creating a product, creating something intellectual property, right? And it can be a service or it can be a physical product, right? But you're laying down some intellectual property and having people be able to buy something and get a transformation without you present, right? So that's one way. Another way that you can scale is through your team, right? So you build a team. So if you're delivering a service, then you can have a team that's helping you deliver that service. And then you slowly but surely remove yourself from the delivery, So that's kind of another way. At Hello 7, we do both, But when you think of it that way, what other things, what are the other options out there that you've considered or that you feel drawn to? Anything especially that you feel is exciting or lights you up a little bit?
That is always the part that I get stuck at because it's not there. I don't have necessarily a thing that I would say lights me up to do or a course that I want to create or a service that I want to give. That's always where I get stuck because it's I don't know. It's not there.
Yes. Interesting. So so you feel okay, there's no product that I want to create. There's no service that I want to deliver. No, I just want to be left alone.
Yes. Honestly. Yes. Which is unfortunately, I'm going to have to get over that and figure something out. But like, yeah, that is largely how I felt.
Yeah. Well, another way to think about it, I mean, you did mention investing as something that you're excited about. So maybe it's like creating some kind of VC firm where you take on, you know, like basically you can invest other people's money and start a fund.
Yeah.
Have you considered doing something like that?
I hadn't.
Because you could have, there's a lot of deal flow that can be created just through your podcast, right? Like you're highly networked because you have this amazing podcast and even from your former career. So that could be an opportunity where you build a fund. You know, that you like invite other people to be a part of. And they could invest, they could write checks for 25,000, 50,000, 100,000, $1 million, right? It doesn't matter. And then you could find opportunities like wellness products that you want to invest in or other kinds of businesses that you want to invest in. What are your thoughts on doing something like that?
I think that sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
And there's a lot of people that are doing it, right? Because when you have influence, there's a lot of ways you can use that influence to monetize. And it doesn't have to be I create a physical product or I create a course or something like that. So that's one idea that I have for you. But another possible idea is you mentioned like speaking, facilitation, hosting. And so I was also thinking like events or retreats because you were saying like, I want to be like a user of wellness and not necessarily like a facilitator or like, you know, teacher of wellness. Right. And so like going on a retreat, I almost like see it as like Goop, you know, like, you know, how Goop is like, you know, they do these live events and different things to introduce products. And so it's like, you know, Gwyneth is just like experiencing this product along with an audience, you know, kind of experience. So what are your thoughts on something like that?
So I have traditionally, because people have been begging me for retreats for years.
Yes.
I have been anti me doing it, me like running things like that.
Yes.
I don't like it. I've had some previous like event-based jobs and it just gives me crazy anxiety.
Yes.
I like participating in other people's events. Like when other people have events and they invite me to speak, I'm like, love it. I'm there. I'm so down. Me hosting a Balanced Black Girl retreat is not going to happen, unfortunately. And people have been begging, and I'm like, listen, I'll sell the name. Someone else can do it. You know, let me be on the board. But like, yeah. Well, and maybe that's the way to go is like licensing deals for the brand and like finding the right partners to do these different things that you're not interested in. Yeah. I would be super down for that. That is actually something that I've thought about.
Okay. So we've got possibly an investment fund that is interesting to you. We also have licensing deals. Okay. Anything else that sparks your interest?
Those are the two big ones, I think.
Tell me about the planners. We've officially rescheduled ROI The Millionaire Summit 2025. Join me, Hello 7, and hundreds of your newest business besties in Huntington Beach, California from June 17th through the 19th for 3 days of high-impact, high-caliber fun. Let me tell you why ROI The Millionaire Summit is happening at the perfect time. June is the ultimate mid-year reset. It's your chance to pause, reflect, and redirect your energy for the months ahead. By the time the summer rolls around, you've had 6 months of wins, lessons, and challenges. That makes June the moment to evaluate what's working and ditch what's not, and pivot for even bigger success in the second half of the year. I'm so excited to invite you to ROI 2025 this summer to reconnect with your vision and take $1 million action with me. Come to dream bigger, move boldly, and reconnect with your purpose. So if you're ready to realign with your vision, sharpen your strategy, and set yourself up for massive wins, ROI is where you need to be. Head to hello7.co/ROI to grab your ticket.
Yeah, I'm just a stationery nerd. I personally love notebooks, journals, planners. I was like a very school supply enthusiast kind of a kid.
Yes.
And have tried so many different planners and never felt like they were exactly what I wanted. They were always just doing too much. And I always just needed like very simple, but straight to the point.
I actually agree.
Yeah.
I don't use physical planners because I feel like it's too many things.
It's
like,
too many things.
I don't have time to fill in all this stuff.
I don't want to track every goal, how much water I drank, this, that. I don't want to do that. I want to write my schedule. I want to write my to-do list and I want to be done with it.
Okay.
And so I ended up working on a version that I created with a friend of mine who's a designer, and we released a digital version at the beginning of this year to test it out and see like, what will people think of it? Will they buy it? Will they like it? With thinking like, okay, if people like it and we have something here, like maybe we can create a physical version.
Yes.
And so it's something that I'm interested in doing. I do think some of the logistics of that kind of overwhelm me, and everything that's kind of happening right now, and like taxes and tariffs, I'm a little overwhelmed by that process and don't really know what to do next to bring it to fruition. But that's something that I feel more like passion project. The profit margins and like the potential to really make a lot of money, I don't know if it's there. So that makes me nervous.
I think it is.
Okay.
If you think about like a company like Franklin Covey, right? They were advising people on they were just consulting on productivity for a long time.
Yeah.
And then they came up with a planner that they used with their clients. And then that eventually became, their product that they've now built an empire from. Yeah. And there's other entrepreneurs that I can think of, like Michael Hyatt, for example, and he has the Full Focus Planner.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of their business, and it generates a good amount of income. So I think you could certainly get to 7 figures with the planner, but you'd probably have to like go all in on that. Like stop treating it like a side project.
Yeah. Yeah. And one other, because I did create kind of a side brand with that, one other idea I had as like a subset of that, or that could complement it, would be something like a meditation app that I think my audience would really like.
Yes.
And I think could be very scalable and probably less logistically consuming.
Yes. Meditation app, and then the planner is another possible option.
Yeah.
I love that. You know who has a great app? Gabby Bernstein.
Oh,
have you checked out her app?
No.
It's called it's just called Gabby. And I did her 21-day manifestation challenge recently, just at the top of the year. I saw it advertised and I was like, oh, I'll do this. Yeah. And I really enjoyed it. So, and I know that like she's going all in on building that app.
Yeah.
And she's in a similar, more spiritual probably, but like still in that, I feel like overall wellness space.
Yeah.
So I think an app is a great idea, because I'm trying to think of like what is immediately revenue generating.
Right.
And I think licensing deals and the investment fund is something that can definitely generate income, but especially the investment fund, it takes time.
Right.
So, I mean, some of it, like basically the way it would work is you'd get checks from people, and then part of that fund that you've collected would be paid to you as your fees for like managing the investments, finding the deals, and all of that.
Yeah.
So it is complex, but I also wonder, like, do you feel like it will give you anxiety also? Like this make you nervous that you're basically taking other people's money and, working to get them a return. Like, how do you feel about that?
I think that would make me nervous.
I mean, anything worth doing is going to make you nervous,
Yeah. I do think I would like to maybe have some experience, like writing some checks myself first. So that's like a big goal of mine, is like this year, even if it's like a baby check, like just do it.
That's the way to get started. My first check was pretty small. It was $35K or 31, something like that.
Yeah.
And, quickly escalated.
Yeah.
That's where it started, just so you can get your feet wet.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's something that you want to do, but you don't feel ready yet.
Yes.
Okay. So I love the meditation app. I love the planner. Can I tell you something that I feel like I'm noticing? I think that your the social, it's the social media, or the combination of the podcast and social media. I suspect that it's taking a lot of your energy, and therefore you don't have a lot of energy to preserve for this new ideas and like a business that you own completely, that you're more in control of, and that doesn't have you as the product.
Yes.
That is my hypothesis.
Oh, 1,000%. Yes. Okay. I'm like fighting for my life to get out this podcast episode every week.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yes. So right. Like that is taking up so much energy that you're like, I don't want to do another damn thing. Yeah. Like everybody leave me alone. Yeah. So like burnout doesn't actually come, like people think that burnout comes from working 18-hour days, and it's not that. Burnout comes from doing work that is draining, that is exhausting for us, and that it does not generate energy, but like depletes energy, and so I suspect like this combination of things is like you're not even in a place to come up with that best business idea, because this is taking your resources that you would then use to build a business that's making you a lot of money.
Yes, I agree.
So So the question is, what are you considering or willing to do about that?
Yeah. I think there's probably a couple of things that I could do about it. I do think that the podcast side, in terms of production, that there's a lot of cleaning up that I can do just around my systems and my processes to make it a lot cleaner. And I do think that there was a time where it was cleaner, and over time it's just kind of gotten messy again.
That happens. It's happened to me too.
Yeah. I do have some great team members, but they do rely on me a lot to make every decision and edit everything and look at everything. And I do think that I could probably do some more work to really train them to get to a point where they need me less, where I can sit down, record, and then my work for the podcast is completely done outside of that. Because right now that's not happening. Yeah. I'm still having to like dot every I and cross every T and make every decision. And it's super draining.
Okay. So that seems really important and like an easy way to regain some of your energy back and some of your time back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think maybe scaling back on social media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, you know, it might hinder growth for a little while, but I think what I would get back energetically would probably be worth it.
Yes. And what you can think about is like the dollar amount of the brand deals. Mm-hmm. What if we just cut those off? Mm. You know, and like, for example, if that was to cut off, like, do you feel like would you be homeless? Or
I wouldn't be homeless. I don't know if I can completely cut it off, but I could say, you know, because I get paid deals, some as low as like a couple thousand, some as high as like, you know, 15, 20, maybe set a threshold of like, if it's under a certain amount, I just don't do it anymore.
Yes. Exactly.
So the low deals, I just don't do those anymore.
Yes. I love that. So let's come up with a dollar amount now.
Okay.
So what is that? What do you feel like the lowest fee should be that you accept?
Maybe like 10K.
I like it. Yes, that's where my brain was too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if it ain't 10K, please go away.
Love that. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so 10K is the limit. Mm-hmm. All right. Anything else that you can do to like regain energy?
I think that would help a lot, because social media brand deals are really fun, but like there's so much back and forth. Even when you have support, the amount of admin and back and forth with those.
It's extremely time consuming.
It is.
It seems like so fun, but then I think when you calculate the hours, you're like, oh, I got paid as much as a, you know, like basically minimum wage.
Yeah,
you know,
and like
sometimes
the revisions and it's like a lot.
The amount of meetings, the thought process that it takes, you like doing something and then editing or like redoing it. It's just, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for people to have perspective, like actually run the numbers on the brand deals, like for our listeners, like run the numbers on the brand deals you're doing to see like, how much am I actually making for the amount of time? That's why time tracking is one of my favorite tools. Mm-hmm. It's something I recommend all the time, because sometimes we think we're making a lot of money and it's like, no, we're not really.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. So, 10K is your new.
I like it.
Yes.
One more thing. It's not necessarily on the list here, but it's just something that I tend to do. And I think I mentioned this before we started recording. I go to a lot of events.
Yes.
And I don't have to.
Yes.
And I should probably not go to as many as I should, because I can, especially in the city, you can go to an event every night. And some of them are great, and it's great networking, and it's great. And sometimes I probably could have like stayed home and read and like recharged a little bit.
Yes. And like some of the, like, so these events, what are you getting out of it?
Usually a lot of it is just connecting with people, networking, getting FaceTime with brands. A lot of the events that I go to, it's like a brand is launching a new product, so they're having this event, come to this workout class, come to this happy hour. So a lot of it is like, it does look good for working with a brand if you show up to their things and you get to know the people who are making decisions about who gets the brand deal. Yeah. But I don't have to go to every single event to still have those good relationships. Yeah. And I think I say yes a little too much.
Yes. Okay. So it's time to audit that. Mm-hmm. And the other thing too is like, it sounds like you kind of want less brand deals. So maybe like don't go to any events.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like your time is like, right now you are the product, right? So reclaiming your time is going to allow you to get to that place where you can figure out, okay, what is that next business opportunity that I now have the energy and desire to do, you know? And like, even to be able to get there, I would cut every fucking event, like every single one, and just be like, I'm taking, unless it's something that sounds absolutely fucking delightful and my friends are going to be there and I'm going to have a great time. Yeah. no. Like, unless I'm guaranteed a fabulous time or a giant paycheck.
Yeah.
And by giant, I mean like 5 figures is the bare minimum. I'm not going.
Yeah.
So can you make that your new rule? You know, and that way, like, you protect that time. And I think once you start to do that, you're going to be like, oh, I'm starting to feel refreshed. I'm starting to feel like myself again. And I'm starting to get excited about some of these ideas. I also want to share with you a question that was posed to me. So I set a goal at the beginning of this year to get to a certain recurring revenue goal for Hello 7.
Yeah.
And I like wrote down the goal, and somebody asked me, what are you willing to give up to get there? And so I think that's the question, right? Like, what are you, to get to the 7 figures, what are you willing to give up to get there? Because sometimes we have these things that are great, but we are getting the spidey sense like, this isn't it anymore. You know, it's like, it got us here, but it's not going to get us there. And in order to get there, it's like, you got to shed the dead weight. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's hard because it's like, this is a beautiful thing. And, you know, it's like served me so well and people would kill for this. It's always the people would kill for this. And it's like, that's cool. I'm not people. You know
exactly.
I'm me.
Yes.
And, you know, we don't want to ignore like when our body is giving us those signals, like this ain't it anymore, because your money is always on the other side of like being willing to walk through that door and being willing to take that risk, you know? Because I think there's so much like monetizable goodness here, but to get there, I think you're going to have to shed some shit. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, a couple of things came to mind. One, I think if I think about what I'm willing to give up, it's being so hyper connected and always on and also always accessible. Like, I'm very accessible to my audience. I try to respond to almost every DM. I'm constantly talking to people all the time. And I also do a lot of like managing people's feelings. And it's exhausting.
No.
I know. Okay. I knew you were going to say that, but it's the truth.
Okay.
So many feelings all the time. And I'm like, I have so many of my own feelings, but like also feeling responsible for the audience's feelings.
How do you get to a place where you're managing other people's feelings? Tell me about that. Like, what does it, what's the actual mechanics of it? Like, is it coming in through your DMs?
Yes. DMs, email, comments, reviews, everywhere, every touch point that people can interact with me. It is just like,
you read it all and you
as
respond
many as
to
I can. Yeah.
Okay. Why?
I think I have this fear of being perceived as like out of touch or stuck up or ungrateful. And so I feel like
you have to prove that you're not.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think there's anyone out there who thinks you're stuck up or ungrateful or any of those things you just mentioned right now?
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten it a little here and there, but I think that's probably more so people's perceptions than like my behavior.
Right. So I guess I'm making the point that you're doing all this work and people still think that.
Yeah.
So who gives a shit?
Yeah, true.
You know? Free yourself.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a secret? I don't respond to a lot of things.
I love it.
And I'm very straight up about it.
Yeah.
I love y'all. Okay. But I'm not responding to 1 bajillion DMs.
Right.
I just can't do it.
Yeah.
Because then it's like my responsibility to my audience is that I want to keep showing up and creating amazing content for them that helps them.
Yeah.
Right. And in order for me to do that, I cannot respond to everything that's coming my way.
Yeah.
So I am just like, when people, I feel like this happens a lot when people like, they're like, oh, I respond to every message. And I'm like, first of all, I hope you're lying. And if you're not, you're nuts, right? Like you have to preserve your energy. Yeah. So you're creating this amazing content and delivering incredible stories, you know, and incredible interviews, like solo episodes, all the things that you do every week. Yeah. And then you feel like on top of that, you owe it to people, right? You're already over delivering.
And like nobody's paying me.
No.
My audience, I love them. They're not paying me. I don't charge them for anything. If they decide to buy a planner, great. But like, I don't gate any of my content. Everything is free. So it is kind of a power imbalance.
Yes. Okay. So these are all the ingredients to not making 7 figures. Yes. Right? Like
sometimes I'm like, how did I get this far?
Like being this? Well, because you're a hard worker and you make smart decisions. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
But some of this, like, it's time to make some new $1 million decisions. Yes. Right? So like putting boundaries in place, and just be straight up with your audience and just say like, I love y'all. I'm not going to be responding to DMs as much anymore.
Yeah.
And here's why, you know, and just be straight up. Like, I'm getting really tired and it's getting me to a place where I'm going to stop creating this podcast. Like, cause I'm just so tired from all the things. And I feel like I'm obligated to do everything under the sun, and you're not.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing more than enough. You're doing a lot more than a lot of people.
Thank you.
In terms of your contributions. Yeah. And so you don't owe people all of your free time. So I want you to put some boundaries in place.
Yeah.
And just, you know, what do you think is going to happen? Like, if somebody DMs you and tells you how they're feeling about something, what do you think is going to happen if you don't respond?
Probably nothing, but I do think it would probably leave a bad taste in their mouth and maybe make them not want to listen anymore, not want to follow anymore.
Yeah.
Leave a bad review, things like that. People love doing that.
First of all, people who want to leave bad reviews are going to leave bad reviews, even if you do respond.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll go back and forth with someone like 18 times and they'll still leave a bad review, right? So like, other people and what they're going to do what they're going to do regardless.
Yeah.
So you don't need to like expend all of your energy trying to get them to not do that.
Yeah.
Just let them do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Let them write whatever shitty comments they want, leave whatever reviews.
Yeah.
Here's what I think is going to happen. I think if somebody is sharing something that's important to them, or that they feel like, you know, like they really want to talk about, and they're sharing it with you and you don't respond, probably the healthy response, most likely what they're going to do is like bring that to somebody in their life.
Yeah.
Right. They're going to be like, oh, let me tell you about this episode that I listened to. Listen to the episode and then let's have a conversation about it, you know, or can I share with you what came up for me? Right. And so like, that's what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't have a close relationship with everyone.
Yeah.
And that's just an outsized expectation, you know, that you're putting on yourself, and it's literally getting in the way of your 7 figures.
Yeah.
You know?
It's true.
So I'm sure your audience would much rather you create amazing products and services that help them and solve problems for them than just be in their DMs all day long.
Telling them, you should talk to your doctor about this, because that's what so many of the responses are.
Exactly. Correct.
Yeah.
So like, you don't need to be, you know, get a badge of honor, right? Like, you're showing up and that's all you need to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think your audience is going to go away. I think they're going to stay right where they are. If anything, they'll probably come closer, because your energy is going to change as soon as you get back some of your time. So give yourself permission.
Yeah.
You know? Seriously. I don't want to see you burning yourself out, exhausting yourself.
It's happened a few times.
Yes. And I've been there. I've burnt myself out 3 times. The first time I was out of commission for a month. The second time I was out of commission for 3 months. And the most recent time, it was 6 months. Ugh. And it just looked like I was doing a lot because I had a lot of stuff coming out, but it was all like pre-planned and pre-written and pre-recorded. So I really wasn't doing shit. Yeah. And that time scared me the most, because I was like, oh, if I can, like, my business can't survive me being out for 12 months, you know, and not that like my team knows how to run this business. Yeah. The business runs day to day without me, but they still need leadership. Right. We still have to have a vision. We still have to know where we're going. We still have to solve problems that come up. And so like, I still have an important role to play, and I don't want to be out of commission for months, you know? So protecting your energy is so critically important to this 7 figures, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like this is the more important game plan, you know? And then like, when you talked about the planner, you lit up and got excited. I feel like the meditation app, I don't know if you're as excited. I'm not sure. I didn't get a read that you were like pumped about that.
Yeah.
I don't want you to do things because it's like, okay, this would make money.
Yeah.
Choose what is going to make you excited. And I think the way that you're going to get there is by doing this plan.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, let's review your game plan.
Okay.
That's going to help you make 7 figures.
Yes.
And mark my words, like in 6 months, you're going to be like, Rachel, you were so right. I made so much money.
Okay, good. I'm excited. I can't wait. Yes.
So your game plan, you know, like usually on this podcast, people are like getting a whole business plan. You're getting a free yourself plan.
Yes.
You know,
that tracks.
And then you'll make a whole bunch more money, you know? So 1, you're going to clean up the systems for your podcast.
Yeah.
Is there anything like somebody that you need to talk to, or what do you need to do to make that happen?
Yeah, I do think I probably should get some outside help with that, just because I think I'm so used to how it's going that I need a fresh set of eyes to streamline it. I hesitate to add more people to my team right now because I just feel like that's more people to manage and more overhead and stuff. But even if it's just bringing in somebody to help rework the systems and then we continue it, that would be really helpful.
Can I give you some advice? I suspect that you know exactly what in the systems need reworking, and I would trust yourself. So like maybe give yourself a day when you have the energy to like map out like, how do I want this to run? Yeah. What do I actually want this to look like? Yeah. And then share that plan with your team. Yeah. Talk about it with them. They probably have ideas. Yeah. I think the team that you already have in place can probably execute this better than, do you know how many times I've hired like outside consultants that I thought knew something that I didn't know. Yeah. And then it turned out they didn't know shit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sense. Yeah.
And I should have saved my money and stopped wasting my time. So that's my encouragement to you is trust yourself. You know this. You've been doing this podcast a long time. You know exactly what you want. Trust that. Trust that vision. Share that vision with them. Tell them what needs to change. And I'm sure they'd be delighted to execute. If you have the right people on your team, they'll probably like, I was thinking the same thing. Let's do it. You know? And they'll get excited about doing it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's step one. And then step two, scaling back the social media. Yeah. Do you have like an agent that represents you, or like who do you need to tell that 10K is the floor?
I do. Yeah. So I would need to talk to my manager about that.
Okay. And your manager is probably going to push back because they get a cut of every deal that you do that's 5K or whatever, but they don't have to show up and do it. You do. Yeah. So you're just going to tell them, I say what I said. Yeah. And you can call Rachel if you want.
Perfect. Yes.
Because trust me, my speaking agents, I decided to raise my rates because I did not want to be running around the country constantly. Yeah. And they pushed back a lot and they were like, you're not going to get hired. And I was like, that's fine. Yeah. If they don't want to hire me at this price, I don't want to be hired. Right. This is the entire point.
Yeah. They're not valuing.
Exactly. Yeah. So just know that you're going to have to stick to your guns on that because people are going to try to talk you out of it. Yeah. And you just have to, like, nobody else gets to set the price. You get to set the price. Yeah. And I think 10K should absolutely be the minimum. Yeah. In my opinion, you could even go higher and say 15K is the floor. If you're not coming with that, get out of my face. Yeah. Yeah. Real. And then no more events. Fuck all the events. Okay. Unless they sound like a damn good time. Yeah. Forget it. Yes. And save your energy. Like, what could you do with the time that you spend like going to all of these events?
Relax, read. I really want to get into creative writing because I love fiction and I've wanted to just like doodle around with writing my own stories and just have not had like the time to. Just be creative in ways that have nothing to do with work.
Yes, exactly. Follow that. Like anything that's like when your spidey sense is going off or you feel drawn to something, usually there's something there. Yeah. And you don't even necessarily know what it is. It may not be like a clear crystal like business plan, but just follow it because you just never know where it's going to lead. That was me with coaching. I was like, I don't know why I'm signing up for a coaching certification. But I just feel drawn to it. So I guess I'm going to do it. I was practicing law at the time. And I did it. And like, here I am, all these years later. Yeah. And I mean, this 8-figure business was on the other side of that coaching certification, And at the time it was in a similar situation, right? I have a really good business. It's working really well. It's not lighting me up anymore. Yeah. I'm kind of over it. I'm exhausted from doing it. And I don't want to let it go, right? Like all of that fear and just like saying yes to the coaching certification opened up to what Hello 7 is today. So follow your instincts. Love it. And wherever it's taking you, and also no more DMing. Yeah. Okay.
No more. I'm good about not responding to emails and like out there podcast pitches. I get dozens a day. I'm really good about not giving those energy, but the DMs get me. It's because they can see if you read it. So I need to just not read them.
Can I tell you something funny? When people send me a message, like I used to like read it and then not respond. Yeah. And like they could see that. And I'm like, good. I want them to see that I don't respond to everything. Yeah. I want them to see that I read it. I did see it, but I don't have the capacity to respond. Yeah. Or sometimes it's like, I got a heart for you. That's all I got, and people message me about my book, about all kinds of things. And I like respond to some of it. But it's pretty sparingly. Yeah. Like I'm probably responding to 5 people, maybe, in a week's time. And now I've taken Instagram off my phone. So now I'm really not on it.
The dream. Yes.
Yeah. So like, I'm just so I understand what is going to take my business to 100 million, and it's not being on Instagram, and it's not doing all this shit that other people want me to do. Yep. It's focusing and giving myself the space to create that next brilliant idea, just like you did with your podcast. Mm-hmm. So that's your action plan. Okay. How do you feel about it?
I feel good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you. I'm excited.
So hopefully you can come back in a few months or maybe next year and report back.
Okay. Let's do it. Yeah. That'll keep me accountable.
I love it. Is there anything like any parting advice that you would give to listeners who are listening who maybe are in a similar place where they maybe have started a business, it's very successful, and they're starting to feel a little drained? Like, what would you say to them?
Yeah. I mean, another thing, and we don't have to get into this because I know we're out of time. I'm also in the midst of like a rebrand right now and rebranding the whole platform to something else that I'm a little bit more excited about right now. And so a big talk that I had to have with myself is just because I had a good idea doesn't mean it has to stay the same forever. And it doesn't mean that I won't have more good ideas. But if I hold the old idea from 8 years ago so close, like I'll never be able to do anything else. And so I would say like, don't suffocate your good ideas. Let there be room for more.
Yes, that's such good advice. Mm-hmm. I heard something similar from a podcast that I listened to recently. Mm-hmm. They were saying that separating art from commerce is really important. Mm. And I almost think that commerce can come from giving yourself the space to just let it be art initially so that you could see where it wants to go and then go all in on the commerce piece, but give it a little breathing room first, let the fire get built.
Yes, I love that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. This was so helpful.
You shared so many gems that I think people are going to get a lot out of.
Okay, good.
You want to make more money? You are in the right place. Welcome to the Hello 7 podcast. That's 7 as in 7 figures. I'm your host, Rachel Rogers.